All right, everyone. Great to see you out there. Talking college football, of course, tonight here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, and specifically the SEC. We've been doing this 9 consecutive weeks, focusing on what I got to say is the best conference in college football. No non-conference games, unfortunately, this year to back it up, but we will see once playoff and bowl time comes how the SEC stacks up this particular season. We've just got a few weeks away, and actually the regular season finale, of course, this weekend before the SEC championship game and all the other games that fill in around the league coming up next weekend. Got LSU taking on Florida, and of course the Gators have wrapped up the SEC Eastern Division. We got David Waters on the line from Gators Breakdown to help us talk some Gators. Dave, how you doing tonight?
Good.
Good.
Glad you could finally say SEC East Division winners, because it's been a while for Florida fans.
Yeah, we pretty much all thought it was there after the win against the Bulldogs, but got to make it official and win out the games. And the last one coming up against Tennessee. What stood out against the Vols for a lot of people that just saw 31-19 as a final score and weren't too impressed by that? Any particular players or units or storylines that you think really matter going forward?
Close little score than indicated. 2 garbage touchdowns for Tennessee there at the end in the fourth quarter there. Florida, just for whatever reason, Mark, doesn't matter who they're playing. They kind of did the same thing to Ole Miss earlier in the season, South Carolina earlier in the season as well. Just let teams, they get up big and then just kind of let teams, bite back a little bit. Georgia was kind of the same way a bit there. So it's kind of been the MO of the team. And you could probably say after the Georgia game and after, Felipe Franks returning back to the Swamp, this team probably exhaled a little bit. You would have liked to see better performances, don't get me wrong, versus the likes of, Kentucky and Vanderbilt and Tennessee teams you're a lot better than, but you didn't play your best ball that 3-week stretch. You got Alabama coming up next week, of course. So this week against LSU, you'd like to see everything kind of just look a little better. Kyle Trask, we'll say, quote unquote, a bad game against Tennessee. Still throws for 4 touchdowns and about 430 yards. And probably, even with those numbers, I would say probably his worst performance of the season. It just didn't look in sync, I guess you want to say. So, but that's nitpicking, Mark. He still played a really good game and carried this offense because got no help whatsoever from the run game. And that's been a consistent story this year, but not as bad as what we saw versus Tennessee. So that's kind of been the thing. Dan Mullen, he thought us media members were challenging him a bit when we kind of peppered him with questions about the run game in his Monday press conference. He was like, if I wanted to, I'd go run it every play. He goes, but look at our team. Look what the strength of our team is. And kind of agree with him to the point. You're wasting plays a little bit when you want to run the ball. And Florida early in that game, they had some sequences where they tried to run the ball on first and second down on consecutive plays. It didn't work. He tried it like 3 times. He's like, okay, you know what? It's just not there today, and we'll go throw the ball and win. So Kadarius Toney had a really good first half. Kyle Pitts had a really good second half, and there you go. That's pretty much the difference.
Before we move on from Tennessee, Dave, you've got your hand on the pulse of the conference. Jeremy Pruitt, of course, in Tennessee jumped out to a 2-0 start. Then in Game 3, they had a halftime lead against Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
So things looked good. And then ever since then, straight down the pike and no wins for this team going all the way back to the first weeks of the season. And whatever the weeks total up now at 2-7, I believe is the record.
Yeah, 6 straight now.
Yeah. So just your thoughts about Jeremy Pruitt. Obviously, he's not been able to figure out what Dan Mullen and get that find at quarterback, and that's been a big deal. But do you think he's safe? What do you think the situation is there?
I think he's safe. Look, he just signed an extension right before this season started. So, some of these ADs and some of these schools are just getting themselves into a bind for giving these contracts that look, and contracts aren't worth the paper they're signed on, basically. But there's, especially in a pandemic year, and look, we've seen South Carolina make a move, we've seen Vanderbilt make a move, but he just signed an extension before this year, and it kind of ropes Tennessee in a little bit more than they probably would want to. Philip Fulmer saying all the right things that look, this is Philip Fulmer's guy. You think he's probably going to try and stick with him as long as he can. But look, Jeremy Pruitt came in, albeit as a first-time head coach. He came in the same year as Dan Mullen did at Florida, and this was supposed to be year 3 was supposed to be the year that they made progress. And look, they're still getting blown out by Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. They're still losing those games by double digits. They're still, not necessarily, if you want to say, it was close for Florida to say they were closing the gap on Georgia this year. Well, they got a victory over Georgia this year. For Tennessee, it was, can they close the gap on Florida and Georgia and make themselves known as that maybe third, or maybe even try and sneak into that second spot this year in the East? And they haven't. They are a bad team. They didn't take the necessary steps. They can't develop a quarterback. They still go to Jarrett Garantano if he's healthy. He wasn't healthy last week. But they have to keep going back to him because there's nobody else behind him, and they can't. I mean, you've seen players like Felipe Franks get better and make their team better. And Garantano was kind of thrown into that same little range of quarterbacks that Felipe Franks was, and he just hasn't performed. And so the lack of development, lack of growth, lack of progress, I think is pretty damning for Jeremy Pruitt. But I think Tennessee's pretty stuck with him right now for at least another year.
So you mentioned Tennessee failing to make that progress in the division. Florida, as you mentioned, did make the progress on Georgia. There is reason to believe that things came together for the Gators this year, with, of course, starting with the quarterback position and things going south at that position for Georgia. Does it feel that overall Florida's caught or surpassed Georgia, or do you need to see more to feel as though the program's made it that far?
I think you still want to see more. I think if you look at it, quarterback's the most important position on the field, and it's the SEC East is probably the West too is the best example of that right now around college football. In the East, Florida has the best quarterback. It's not close, and it wasn't really close during the season. Of Florida blew out Georgia. It wasn't even a game, and because of the quarterback position. That's the gap. And for right now, I know Georgia's really high on JT Daniels, but we got to see more before I think we're ready to say that he is a Kyle Trask, a Mac Jones, or does he even have to be that type of quarterback? Recent history shows you have to put those kind of numbers up. You have to push the ball down the field as an offense. So we'll see if JT Daniels can do that. But for looking forward, I mean, you can say Florida caught Georgia this year. Looking forward, if you want to talk about that type of progress, it's going to have to be, can you sustain victories over Georgia? And a lot of that's going to depend on if Emory Jones is the guy that can carry the offense next year, or Anthony Richardson in years coming up there. So I think a lot of it has to be pointed to the quarterback position, because overall, Florida's talent's not on Georgia's level as far as recruiting talent. Now, if you want to talk about developed talent and talents that's been there, and they keep showing up and growing as a team and players getting better in their time at a program, then Florida shrinks that gap right there. So I think there's different ways to look at it where you can say Florida is closing the gap on Georgia. You can't go based solely on recruiting rankings. That's a big part of it. That's probably the main part of it, but you have to look in other places too. And I think that's where Florida's showing the gap on Georgia.
We talk SEC football here every Wednesday night at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Hope that you like the video, and of course subscribe here and hit that bell for the notifications. That way you know when we're going live. Got David Waters here from Gators Breakdown. You can join him on your favorite audio platform, or you just stay right here on YouTube and look up Gators Breakdown. Point spread against LSU is 22. Mm-hmm. This is one of the series that's one of the most competitive, most look forward to each season as these programs are at a high level, and we really want to see LSU and Florida, and to see a 22-point spread in this game is kind of crazy. Any real concerns against LSU? Because of course Florida's in a position, unlike they were with Muschamp or McElwain on the sideline when they won divisions, McElwain in particular, where there was nothing else to play for. They were just trying to get to the end and would lose a game against Florida State or a late season conference game, and it didn't matter. But this team wants to get to the playoff, and they can't get derailed. So any real concerns this weekend?
I don't think so, Mark. LSU is a pretty bad team. The results out there show it. Of course, the comparison to what Alabama did versus LSU last week to what Florida's going to do Saturday will be out there. won't mean a whole lot till the teams play next week in the SEC championship game, but the comparisons will be made when you look at the matchup there. So, no, I mean, Miles Brennan goes down for LSU. The passing game kind of takes a hit there with two freshman quarterbacks that LSU's playing right now. The run game's nowhere near where it was last year either. You got Terrace Marshall opted now, Eric Gilbert, who was going to be their leading receiver now. He's off the program for the rest of the year. So LSU's hurting. You don't know where their mind is right now either. I mean, just come out right before we went live, Mark, that they're not going to play in a bowl game this year. They've self-imposed a bowl ban on themselves this year for a lot of the off-field issues that they're dealing with right now. So I'm not even sure LSU mentally is where they – of course, they're not anywhere close to where they were last year. But, as this season winds down and everything that happened with COVID and all the off-field issues and all the talent that they lost, and now you're going into the last game of the season and – I think it's probably a season they're just kind of ready to get over with right now and trying to move on. So, we'll see. I don't think there's much for Florida to worry about here. Now, don't get me wrong. You just played Tennessee. You just played Kentucky. You just played Vanderbilt. LSU is still the most talented team that you're going to play in this recent stretch of games there, but they're not playing well as a team right now. A lot of questions, and Florida goes out there. This game's more about Florida than it is about LSU. Florida goes out there and plays their game. It'll probably lead to a comfortable win for the Gators.
And in bringing up point spreads, the lines have also come out for championship weekend, and the Gators are a 14-point dog against Bama. How did that hit you?
I wasn't too surprised, Mark. You go and I think since Florida beat Georgia and had that Arkansas back-to-back stretch, Florida hasn't played their best football. And I think you've seen Alabama get better. I think you've seen Alabama kind of raise their game a bit in the last few weeks. And not totally surprising. I expected a couple scores. I thought maybe a tiny bit higher. I thought 10, 11, probably somewhere around there would do that. But you're seeing Alabama play really well right now. So I think Vegas just kind of sees that Bama being known as that power, playing really, really good football right now. See Florida putting up mid-30s, high 30s, and Vegas loves some points right now, and I think they know college football watchers out there kind of shy toward that way. So I think I think you're watching these two teams play right now. I can see why Vegas put that line there at 2 scores.
David Waters, Gators Breakdown. Regardless of whether you're a Florida fan, SEC, or just a college football fan, check out his work there at Gators Breakdown. Again, your favorite audio platform, or right here on YouTube. David, we always appreciate you stopping by.
Thanks, Mark.
And certainly, again, it's the Gators and the Tigers this weekend. And when I hear that matchup, LSU and Florida, it's typically a great one. And it's one of the reasons why they are matched up each and every year in the SEC. And we got the Florida side and some comments from David concerning LSU's plight. Let's go to the source here for LSU football. We got Lon Phillips Sullivan on the line from LSU Odyssey to talk up the Tigers. Lon, how you doing tonight?
We're doing all right, Mark. How about you?
I'm doing just fine. Talking up some SEC football, and we've got quite a bit going on, not necessarily related to the field this week. The games and this, and you're not alone when it comes to this, Lon, in regards to LSU football, where the games are almost becoming secondary unless you're in a championship race to everything that's going on, just trying to field a team for a lot of these programs. And then, of course, coaching searches and all that other thing that leads into the off season. But for LSU, as David just mentioned, a bowl ban that's been self-imposed here for next season, or for this season, I'm sorry.
Yep. And that was just confirmed in the last few hours. And it's the right thing to do. It will go some way to getting some favor from the NCAA. It feels like they are out for blood, and no matter what the evidence may show, there's going to be some sort of penalty. There already has been self-imposed recruiting penalties, which has made the recruiting difficult for this class, but somehow Orgeron has pulled off the number 3 class in the country. Just absolutely brilliant, considering what he's been swimming against that type of current with the violations. But it's just been a very interesting few days. Eric Gilbert opting out. That was very interesting. There was a lot of reasons given, but the real reason is he's done with 2020. We figure he might come back to LSU. We think he'll probably come back, but whether he does or not, he's done with 2020 right now, and it feels like a lot of the LSU players are just done with 2020. Yeah.
Talking LSU, taking on the Florida Gators this weekend. And there is a final game on championship weekend for LSU, correct? Or are they going to be done with the season after this week?
We'll play Ole Miss after
Ole
Florida. Florida, yeah, this game coming up here for LSU, what is there to play for after you allow 470 yards in the first half against Alabama? I mean, Mac Jones went Davy Jones on our ass. And then you got Devontae Smith putting up almost 300 yards of offense in the first half. There was no reaction, no response, no adjustment from LSU across the board. I'm done with the excuses for this team. There's no way to explain why Cordell Flott is covering Devontae Smith. There's no way to explain why Derek Stingley isn't following him in motion. And that's not on Derek Stingley. That he's purely being instructed to do that. By who? Is it Bo Pelini? Is it Corey Raymond? There's some mystery to that. But either way, there's going to be some changes at LSU. There has to be with the staff. I anticipate, maybe not the biggest changes in the world because of what we can do with the contracts, but there will be some changes.
So when you mention changes and you're talking that side of the football, of course, we're going to go straight to Bo Pelini. You talking about to that degree? Or are we talking about positional coaches?
Yeah, I can't anticipate Pelini being ousted. It doesn't seem to work at $2.3 million with the pandemic, with the cuts LSU has taken. At the same time, maybe it's just that bad of a situation. They're willing to really roll that financial dice. I could see both. I could see both scenarios playing out. I was a huge Pelini supporter, and I felt like he was turning it around after the Arkansas Texas A&M game. There were some signs, but once again, you just see the same players in the same positions making the same horrific missed tackles, same horrific blown coverages. I mean, it was just forget Mac Jones being the Heisman. It's Devontae Smith who's the Heisman for 2020. This dude is he just erased Cordell Flott. I mean, Cordell Flott, he's now allowed 11 direct touchdowns. I remember we did a show a few weeks ago, or even just a week ago, where I said it was 9. But now with 2 this last week, it's up to 11, and it's shocking. There's just some disastrous plays across the board from LSU, and it's coaching.
Lon Phillip Sullivan on the line talking LSU, and you can catch him on LSU Odyssey. And I encourage everybody to jump on over there with a lot going on surrounding the football program. And as we dive into the offseason, just less than 2 weeks away after the Tigers take on the Gators and take on Ole Miss, there will be changes made, not necessarily at the top, but as Lon is running down a disappointing. We knew it would come back from 2019, but even with those milder expectations, certainly a very disappointing 2020.
At the same time, I remember, Mark, you predicted LSU would be 10-1.
This year?
Yeah, I remember your prediction show. This may have preempted the opt-outs, but I remember a prediction show where you said LSU would only catch 1 loss.
Okay, I'm going to look that up.
I swear,
because I am. So we only had a 10-game schedule here, though. Keep in mind,
this was before I think the schedule was changed.
Okay. So once the schedule was changed, I'm almost positive I was in the 6-4 or 7-3. I'll have to double check. It's all time stamped. It's all on my channel.
My point is, Mark, is
Yes.
this happened very quickly. This was just a huge landslide with Jamar Chase, Terrace Marshall, Eric Gilbert, Miles Brennan, Tyler Shelvin, Jacoby Stevens is playing well. You got Marcel Brooks who's there. Derek Stingley isn't out for the first game. Things like that. It looks finite. It looks powerful. It looks strong. It looks like a CFP contender. Maybe not good enough to beat Alabama this year, but definitely way, way, way good enough to shut down Auburn, to beat Auburn, allow 48 points against Auburn, allow 44 to Mississippi State, who's only got one loss, one win, I believe, and it's of course against LSU. 623 passing yards allowed, the most points allowed against an Auburn series, the most points allowed in the Alabama series by halftime. I have to put my foot down when it comes to this. When you lose to Nick Saban like that, to me, that is just it cuts deeply. It's something that cannot be, rectified with just simple explanations or words. When you lose like that, it's not about losing. Okay, it's about losing like that. It's about folding. And the 2019 team, people could say whatever they wanted about that defense, but that defense never folded in any game. And they absolutely had Burrow's back when they were thrust out there with drive after drive after drive because Burrow and that offense would score so quickly. It took a toll on that team. They were beat up all over that defensive line. Rashard Lawrence was hurt. Tyler Shelvin was hurt for most of that season. You got Grant Delpit playing on a hurt ankle that whole year. And still they powered through it, tough through it, and forced turnovers against the best quarterbacks in college football. They didn't cry. They didn't whine. They didn't point fingers. They didn't opt out. But I at the same time, I cannot blame these players for opting out. Something is going on at LSU. We need to figure out what it is. And if I really don't think it's something with the football team. I think it's what has happened with these rape allegations. And I want to challenge Coach Orgeron right now on this show to act about these rape allegations. Act now before you lose your football program. You will be made the scapegoat by this horrible athletic administration who has completely bungled every Title IX investigation that's come across their desk and totally covered for certain players. And it has nothing to do with you, Coach. You have totally backed up. There's evidence that shows that you backed up the victims. But you will be made a scapegoat, and this program that you have built will be taken from you unless you act and compel the president, Tom Galligan, to act and act fast and get rid of the people who participated in that cover-up.
Lon Phillips Sullivan with a call to action.
Until we do that, LSU will not win a football game. It doesn't matter if Joe Burrow's ghost started at quarterback. It ain't happening. You can't get those clouds, that dark cloud around. You can't get it away from that university until we know who did what, who knew when, and they're out and they're punished.
Yeah, it's a messy situation, and of course, the only disclaimer I'll give somebody like an Ed Orgeron, being in the position that he is trying to determine what's truth and what's not truth, and in making a stand like that.
True, exactly, and I don't envy his position. What I'm asking for is not to come out with bold, this happened, but I just want to see him. He doesn't, because I know he can't legally speak on certain aspects of it. I understand that. What I want to see is him to be more bolder, him to be more vocal, him to have more of an articulate thought about these issues. Same thing with the social justice thing. I just feel like he was slow to react there. It took until Ryan Clark came and educated him a bit on it, and then he was up to speed. I love this coach. He is the coach for LSU. There's so many recruits across this country who want to follow this guy, and it makes sense to. And this coach, this is a guy who's rebounded from so many trials and tribulations throughout his career, whether it's been his own mistakes or things beyond his control. He has rebounded time and time again. I expect him to rebound again tenfold. As he said the other day, that LSU will be a championship team under him once again. I firmly believe that. But to make that happen, we have to get rid of this stain upon the program, upon the university.
Our guy Reasonable Gump is saying that the NCAA couldn't care less about LSU self-imposing penalties. Of course, a bowl ban self-inflicted in this season means even less than a typical season. But to continue his thought, that's like asking the cops not to arrest you after a shooting because you locked away your driver's license for a week.
Well, okay, it's not going to earn much with the NCAA. I understand that they've been after Will Wade with wiretaps and the FBI and all this crazy stuff for years, and it's never proven anything. And I don't know what they're going after, what they're looking for, but the rape allegations, the Title IX thing is a whole separate thing than the NCAA recruiting violations that they've looked into, and that's what we need to make sure to educate people on. These are two separate issues. One is pretty minor stuff that LSU's been hit with, relative to the basketball and football program, and it's a really flimsy case. But then when you talk about the rape allegations cover up, I have seen the evidence firsthand, Mark. You can't ignore it. You can't look away. You can't pretend that it isn't there. And I talk to recruits and their families. I know that they can't pretend to look away from this. They won't. They want answers, and they want them now. And I'm telling you, if Coach Orgeron does not compel the aura of silence at the top of LSU to finally just come forward about some of this stuff and be transparent, we will have to see some of these great recruits and their families go bye-bye. And it's going to affect the program on and off the field in a myriad of ways that we can't even fathom. Because when you don't have great personalities and great characters on your football team, it's not about just on the field. Joe Burrow meant way more than just playing football on the field, Mark. What he did on that Heisman speech, raising awareness for the poverty in Ohio, everything he did meant more. Everything he did meant more than just it just meant more. And there's players on this 2020 team who it's like, I can see that there's going to be some future superstars for LSU out there. Keyshawn Butte, Eli Ricks, BJ Ojolari, if he stays. Cordell Flott, I feel like he could rebound as well somehow, some way, if he can be used in the right position for once. Derek Stingley has another year, and he's just an absolute special specimen. There's talent all over this team, and there's talent coming in, but it doesn't mean a damn thing if the culture's off. And the culture being off has nothing to do with Coach Orgeron as, just this horrible heathen running around, a horrible guy like Negan from Walking Dead wielding a baseball bat or something. This is straight up about the rumors and the innuendo flying around because of the uncertainty with that investigation.
Getting the word on LSU football from Lon Phillips Sullivan, as usual, from LSU Odyssey. So I certainly encourage everyone to head on over to LSU Odyssey. The Tigers take on the Florida Gators this weekend, and then it's a season finale against Ole Miss, and we'll see those LSU players and how much pride they have in trying to make it a game against the Gators as a 22-point underdog. Lon, we had you on sometime last week. It's not been that long, and you addressed the recruiting progress as we get close to National Signing Day, and you had no issues at that point. Has anything cropped up concerning, the another loss another embarrassing loss, and then the off the field allegations. Anything else in regards to recruiting?
Actually, no, it's weird. It's just recruits looking and their parents looking for answers still about the same stuff that they were looking for answers for, 2 or 3 weeks ago, a month ago when this story first broke. They knew what LSU were up against. They knew the scholarship numbers. They knew the opt-outs. Coach Orgeron has been very communicative with these families and these players, these recruits. But the thing is, it's the uncertainty and the overreactions from the fan base. The fan base is very emotional on social media. I get it. You guys put tombstones on Jerry DiNardo's yard, I get it. It's Louisiana, but at the same time, just dial it back a bit, because like Coach Orgeron, I can see it in his eyes. This is an exhausted man who's literally watched like everything take a 180, and it's just draining it out of him because there's so much pressure. There's so much news coming at him left and right, so many big decisions, so many things that he just has no control over as well. And I have a lot of empathy for him and in this position as well. But for the Florida game, Tristan Lee, he's going to be there at the game, and it's a last chance for Florida visit, but it's also a last chance, in my opinion, for LSU visit. I feel like LSU's got to make a big statement. We're not going to beat Kyle Trask. We're not going to beat that offense most likely. But if we can actually have a great showing, if we can put up a lot of points, if our offensive line can block like they blocked on a few of those plays against Alabama, the big John Emery run, that we were blowing some guys up on the replays there, and it was like, how can this not happen every play, or even just a few plays, like only a few times a game? But there's talent on this LSU team all over the board. But this is Florida's season to really challenge Alabama. Kyle Trask, he's an absolute assassin. 38 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, I believe was the numbers. And I can't remember how many games they've played because of the whole COVID insanity. But it's about time that we get this game underway, because I've been waiting to go to the Swamp since October. I remember doing a show with you, Mark, where I said, we're going to drink the Swamp down, Mark. We're going to drink it down. And you know what? I think Florida might drink us or just feed us to the Gators. But at the same time, if we're going to die, we're not going to die like a funeral march. Let's die fighting. Let's die kicking some ass, taking some names. I want to see these players stand up, show some pride. You're wearing purple and gold. Don't you forget that until you take it off. Because there are people out there who would have given their left arm to play in those jerseys. I wouldn't give an arm to play football, but I played it enough. But I wouldn't give an arm to play for LSU. I would give a lot to play for LSU. Wouldn't give an arm. There's a lot of people who would, and they should not take that lightly. They've earned that because of their talents, their greatness. But they show some spirit out there, kick some ass. Kyle Trask, I see some vulnerabilities on the edges of that offensive line. I feel like they've been worn down by some little niggling injuries throughout the season. I feel like they're susceptible off the edges. I feel like there's ways that LSU, using stunts, things like that, we can fake them out. We can use our speed. But at the same time, it is so hard to say anything positive about a defense that allowed 470 yards at halftime. And I just there was missed opportunities in that Bama game as well. There were missed opportunities early. Alabama were playing sloppy. TJ Finley threw for 9 first down completions, and he threw for 6 in like the first 2 drives. I was doing the tally. It was he was slicing them up, and then we just went away from it, called a few stupid plays. Drives would be over. You give the ball to Alabama, they're going to score the damn touchdowns. And it's frustrating, but LSU, we need to take our punches.
There you have it from Lon Phillips Sullivan. Always appreciate the breakdown, Lon. And of course, National Signing Day is coming up next Wednesday. So everybody tune in, because that is the biggest day on the college football calendar in many respects.
I really think LSU's got a big chance to get some of these guys. Mason Smith, Corey Foreman, if you look at what they've said, their track record, they have a huge belief in what LSU is doing. LSU has been believing in them for a long time. Mason Smith and Coach Orgeron go back to, I think, when Mason was maybe 10, 12, something like that. It's just there's some huge ties there. Corey Foreman also with the SoCal connection with Eli Ricks, Race John Davis as well. They want to play on the same team together. His father has said that over and over and over. These two want to play together. Race John, I'm sure, has said that as well. There's some great targets out there. Tristan Lee is the number one priority, though, for LSU. Make or break for this class, Tristan Lee. Why? The most high character individual, leadership, just a well-written maturity. This kid is unbelievable. What he's been through, what he's triumphed over. Go onto my website, lsuodyssey.com. We have a great interview with his mom that really shines some light on Tristan Lee. We also have an interview with Tristan as well that's just awesome. Tristan, he sounds like the most aggressive offensive lineman I have ever seen. And when you watch the tape, he backs it up, man. He is just he is a freight train of hate pain. He is just he's incredible. He is the Michael Myers of college football. I cannot wait for him to just strap on purple and gold. We'll see if he chooses. Oklahoma's in there, and I know he's tight with Caleb Williams. We'll see. But at the same time, I know LSU and him are very tight.
Okay, Lon. Always appreciate the knowledge, man. Keep after it. I know you've got a lot of different details you got to track. You got to track this football team playing football games. You've got the bowl situation now, and of course, as you mentioned, that's not going to impress the NCAA, but it's certainly a step that the football program and the administration had to take as a goodwill gesture to say, we understand there's an issue. We're going to take this measure. I don't think there's any question they had to make that move. And then also recruiting, and we're going to be tracking you down here next Wednesday, Lon.
Oh, definitely. We'll be there. Mark,
absolutely. Thanks, Lon. Have a good night.
Good. Go Tigers.
Good stuff from Lon Phillips Sullivan. Again, it's LSU Odyssey. Tigers and the Gators, usually a good one. Probably won't be this Saturday with Florida, a 22-point favorite. Yes, reasonable, Gump. We know that the Ohio State Talk in the Big Ten Championship has dominated the live chat. This is an SEC show, so we'll talk SEC football. But if anyone wants to call me concerning anything in college football, I will not deny you that, of course. The number is 860-325-3687. We're awaiting some other folks to jump online with us. And, of course, Shane Beamer is the newest SEC head coach going to South Carolina. And we've released some videos on South Carolina's move to upgrade there following Will Muschamp's ascension and descension there at South Carolina. At one point in his tenure there in Columbia, of course, so Will Muschamp had won 3 games, then 6, then 9. That was in 2017, and it's been downhill ever since beating Michigan in the Outback Bowl. And it's been downhill for Michigan ever since that Outback Bowl, pretty much, and so forth and so on. So elsewhere in the SEC, unfortunately, we don't get to see Texas A&M and Ole Miss play. I was looking forward to that game. Not that I thought I would not be shocked if Ole Miss would beat Texas A&M on the field. But, of course, the Aggies would be and were a substantial favorite. But to see that Texas A&M defense have to perform against an Ole Miss offense that is lit it up against just about everyone, I did want to see a Texas A&M performance. It was asked a number of times in the live chat, and this was certainly a topic of conversation yesterday as soon as Ohio State Michigan was canceled, and that's finding an opponent for Ohio State this weekend. Of course, Texas A&M is on the sideline as well, not playing their game against Ole Miss. Is there any real truth to any type of discussions, any validity to Ohio State possibly playing Texas A&M. I cannot imagine in any way. The Big Ten is not scheduled or even brokered an outlet for that type of decision to be made. There's just been nothing out there established by either conference that they would go out there and play non-conference games, especially ones that were not originally scheduled. The SEC and the Big Ten both decided not to play non-conference games, and the SEC was most specifically aligned with the ACC when all of this went down early in the season. In regards to they were the closest aligned in terms of scheduling and when to start the season, and their rhetoric was much the same in terms of being very cautious and hesitant and taking all the guidelines and severity of the situation into account, but being determined to play football. And the ACC was the conference, somewhat surprisingly, that decided to play non-conference games and not the SEC. And the Big Ten from the get-go was not going to play non-conference games, and they stated why. Because of the lack of control of knowing what the guidelines and stipulations are and the testing protocol outside the conference. So, no, Texas A&M and Ohio State will not be playing. It would be a fun game to watch, of course. And it would be interesting to see both teams match up against a team that they haven't seen since, let's see, the 1999 Sugar Bowl. Buckeyes beat Texas A&M that night, 24-14 in New Orleans, and the Buckeyes beat Texas A&M in the Cotton Bowl in 87 after the 86 season. David Stein is saying, doesn't Texas A&M with Kellen Mond remind us of Ohio State with J.T. Barrett? I understand when you're talking about a limited passer. Kellen Mond seems to more consistently show us a stronger arm than J.T. Barrett. J.T. Barrett is a more gifted, I don't want to say gifted, he's a smarter runner. We'll say that. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. I believe we've got Stephen M. Smith on the line from Touchdown, Alabama. Hey, Stephen.
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
I am doing well. How about yourself?
I cannot complain here. Well, you could, but who wants to hear that?
No, we don't want to hear that, Stephen. And you are the last person I would expect that out of.
Absolutely, which is why I do not do it.
Okay. Alabama, of course, is secure in its position in the SEC championship game opposite Florida. That's all been decided. There's a game against Arkansas this weekend. So my first question deals with the Hogs. Just a 3-6 team, but at the same time, considering their issues the last 2 years under Chad Morris, and not even winning games against FCS and Group of 5 teams outside the conference, the record might say 3-6, but it's been a fun story out of Fayetteville to see this Arkansas program brought back to life to a certain extent.
Sam Pittman, the former offensive line coach at Georgia, Mark, has come in and he has injected new fight, new energy into this program. Yes, it's 3-6, but it could very easily be 6-3. This is a team that lost. This is a team that lost 3 games by a combined 7 points. It lost to Missouri by 2. It lost to LSU by 3. And it lost to Auburn by 2. So could very easily be a 6-3 team right now. So Coach Pittman and his guys have been in a lot of close games. They've been right there, just could not quite finish the deal. But this is a very competitive football team. And the fans over there in Arkansas, very excited about what Pittman's going to do with this bunch in the future.
Looking at Alabama, we're looking at close to a perfect team. And that's, ridiculous to state it that way, but they are just playing so well. The stat of the weekend for me in watching the various games was that Alabama posted those first 5 touchdowns on the board against the talent of an LSU defense. I know they haven't played well, but still the talent of an LSU defense. 5 touchdowns on the board for the Tide without facing a third down. That's ridiculous.
And probably the more ridiculous part of it, Mark, was there was a point in that game where Mac Jones was 11 for 11 for 243 yards and 3 touchdowns. And I'm literally staring at the field and my laptop going, is he playing Madden? Like, how in the 11 for 11 for 243 and 3 touchdowns? I mean, just insane how much this offense has clicked under Steve Sarkisian. And one would have thought that when Jalen Waddle went down against Tennessee, one of your more explosive, take the top off a defense type of receivers in college football, one would have thought that, Alabama's going to slow down, it's going to take a back seat because Waddle is not there. But it seems like even with the Waddle injury, Devontae Smith has just extremely raised his level of play, and the team hasn't missed a beat.
Stephen, I love to get the personnel breakdowns from you because I want to learn and know those players that are somewhat under the radar. So pick out somebody on offense, somebody out on defense that we may not be real familiar with that you like their emergence this season and going forward into 2021.
Well, the emergence this season from a guy that not many people know of, Shaleel Billingsley, offensively at tight end. This young man has come on, the 6'4", 230-pounder from Chicago. He grew up on the worst side of Chicago. He came to Alabama last year in the freshman class, and the light bulb started to come on for him late last season, but still was not that complete tight end yet. In the last 3 to 4 games this year, Sarkisian has featured him in the offense. He has come alive. At this point, 10 catches, 192 yards, 2 touchdowns. He runs routes like a wide receiver. So keep your eyes on Shaleel Billingsley at tight end. That's the guy on offense. The guy on defense that's starting to come out more and see, you're going to see a lot more of him in 2021. Tim Smith on the defensive line. That guy is a monster coming out of Sebastian River High School in Florida. He plays like a baby version of Quentin Williams, who was here just a few years back, a couple of years back. So keep your eyes on Tim Smith for years to come on that defensive line. And then keep your eyes for years to come, especially next season, on Shaleel Billingsley at tight end.
We've got Stephen M. Smith on the line from touchdownalabama.com. Please join him and the rest of the staff as they break down Alabama football. Arkansas is the next game. And then, of course, the SEC championship game against Florida. The line was released on that game at 14, Stephen. And I thought it was a bit inflated, my first thought. Then I reasoned that, okay, well, we just saw a 37-point win against, am I doing the math correct, on LSU, something in that range? 38 against LSU, a 29-point win against Auburn, a 17-point win earlier this season against Georgia. And if you just go through the quality teams on Alabama's schedule, 28 over Texas A&M, of course, and add it up, it's not certainly far-fetched.
It's not, and it's the ability for Steve Sarkisian offensively to create matchups where he can isolate the guys that he wants, get them the football. Those guys are out there making plays. But then the balance of it all, when you look at Naji Harris coming out the backfield, his second straight 1,000-yard season. This is the first time since 2015 under Lane Kiffin that Alabama has had a 3,000-yard passer, a 1,000-yard rusher, and a 1,000-yard receiver. When you look at this year, Mac Jones, Naji Harris, and Devontae Smith. And then defensively, you're starting to see an Alabama bunch play a lot better. They're playing better and better with each passing game. Now, of course, the fans in Tuscaloosa and surrounding areas would like to see more consistency in terms of not making a lot of those mental errors, whether it's a coverage bust here, a small run fit mistake there, but it's football, things like this happen. But above all else, since the Ole Miss game, with each passing week, this Alabama defense with Pete Golden has gotten a lot better.
Stephen, we always appreciate the conversation with you. It's always a good one. Always gain some insight into Alabama football. Enjoy the game against Arkansas, and we will catch up with you soon. Of course, 1 week from today is National Signing Day.
It is National Signing Day, and right now Alabama looking to have all of its commitments for 2021 locked in. If you've been on social media, a lot of these young men that have committed here to the Crimson Tide, whether it's the Brockemeyer boys or Dallas Turner, JaQuincy McKinstry, these guys have been talking about, we're not flipping, we're not going anywhere, we're making this class the best class ever. Either you ready or you get out the way. So this 2021 class, they are locked in. They are razor sharp focused. This is going to be a good group of kids.
And it's another number one class in the SEC and nationally for the Tide. Stephen M. Smith. Stephen, it's always a pleasure. You have a great night.
You too, Mark. Take care.
All right. There we have it. This is our 9th edition of SEC Live. We are looking for a sponsorship here. Would love to do this show each and every week throughout the offseason as well. For those of you who just started watching me during the season, believe me, during the offseason, it's like it's not an offseason. It is the same approach. We go full throttle. We produce content. We post it every day. We do live shows. We talk about all those things we don't have time to get to during the season because we're just talking about the play on the field. We talk all the historical arguments, breakdowns, conference rankings, ratings, rating players, top 10 quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, every position, and recruiting rankings and news, all of it here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. But the best way to get this done and to keep it sustained would be to get ourselves a sponsor for the call-in show during the week, Monday through Friday at 9 o'clock Eastern time. Now, I know that fluctuates from time to time because, of course, tonight we had already scheduled an SEC Live each and every week at 8 o'clock Eastern time, but pretty much every night here at 9 o'clock Eastern time. Tomorrow night, we've got 2 Miami live streams. And the way that works out is we've got the Wholesome one and we've got Cam Underwood from State of the U. So it just worked out that they were both available the same night for you Miami haters who then get on me for producing too much Miami content. But we do have the Hurricanes featured live at 4:15 and at 7 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow. And in between, our one sponsored team-specific live stream, at least for the time being, is Nebraska Live. And we hope you'll join us at what is 6 o'clock Eastern and 5 o'clock Central for Nebraska Live. Also want to let everyone know that if you run a small business, you're probably getting hammered right now, just like everybody else is in the business world, by the pandemic. And certainly everybody's on their phones. And there's a few different aspects of the economy that have thrived. There's very few. One has been online for obvious reasons. People are on their phone. People are stuck at home. They're on their phone way too much than they should be. But this was a growing trend anyway. So small businesses have been caught off guard, scrambling to generate sales, get into people's living rooms, get in front of them. 2.6 billion people on Facebook, 2.6 billion have Facebook accounts. So that's a key place to be, of course. The fine folks at Verma Digital, let me pull up the banner here. They have discussed my situation here with me 3 or 4 times at this point. So I appreciate their consultation, their help in getting us up and running, because there's a number of ways in which this business, for example, being an online business, has to do much better in the marketplace and reach more people. They know how to do that using Facebook ads, Google AdWords, social media content, and have a full-fledged marketing strategy ready and available for everyone. So if you're tired of your business going elsewhere, being trampled by your competitors, I would suggest that you contact Verma Digital, vermadigital.com. They will schedule a free consultation for you. And even just in that free consultation, I guarantee you will gain a ton of knowledge to carry you through going forward. Of course, they want to work with you on a regular basis, but even that contact will be enough to help you out and enlighten you to a lot of ways in which you can expand your business online. So again, it's Verma Digital. So jump on there, and then you get the free consultation. Mention my name, Mark, M-A-R-K, and you automatically get 10% off any other services. There you go. All right, let's see what's in the chat. We got a contribution coming in from, I got to tell you, this guy is pretty amazing in his consistent support of what we do here. Chuck C. Mark, thanks. Here's a super chat from McCain's fan. We appreciate the content and love all in the college football world, at least most of it. And I got to tell you that the support of Miami fans has been phenomenal since we've had this super chat available. And also you can contact me and contribute at, as I just had the banner up, Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. And there was only one of those that I was able to actually put the link in the description section of the videos. And I believe that's PayPal. The other ones are apps on the phone, so I couldn't put in a link. But PayPal, that link is down in the description section of all my videos. So you can contribute to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, using PayPal, Cash App, Venmo as well. All right. You see the number down below, 860-325-3687. For anyone who wants to call in tonight, talk some college football. I'm going to do my darndest to, in the future, as we go forward with this nightly call-in show, is to provide a little bit more of a focus in regards to subject matter, topics, especially once we get into the off season, and not just say, phone lines are open. So we used to do that. We did a show here for about 20 straight weeks, and I don't know who's been with us long enough to remember this. Maybe Cheryl, maybe Reasonable Gump, but we did a college football coast-to-coast show that I would love to bring back, to be able to do it with some off-site producer skills, some technical and operational skills to add to what we're doing here that would make it so much better, because we were able to do the call-in portion of it much more professionally. And we had graphics, and we did the whole deal because I had my guy Marty direct it remotely. But for about 20 consecutive weeks, we did a college football coast-to-coast show, and it was much more scripted and with topics every night, and we had a whole lot of fun doing that. All right. So what I'm basically saying is, Mark, get on it and actually give this thing some thought every night before you jump on here. Vinay, I apologize. First of all, hopefully I've pronounced your name correctly. But Vinay, I did see a couple of your questions while we were having guests on, and I wanted to get to those. Mark, can we address and explain to everyone why Ohio State has earned their way in, or should we save this for Buckeye Daily? Nope, let's do it right now. This is an SEC show, but the talk is Ohio State in the Big Ten Championship today. So it's quite simple. Yes, the Big Ten announced before the revised schedule started that there would be a minimum of 6 games needed to be played for any team to qualify for the Big Ten Championship game. Okay? They made a mistake. They were short-sighted. Now, I understand, and I actually agree on the initial thought process would be, of course, okay, we're going to play a football season during a pandemic. We know that there are going to be games canceled, and we know that there is a high possibility that one particular program could get hit and slaughtered and would be out of commission for a long, long period of time and not able to play, because that's been one of the signs of this pandemic, is that it's hit certain areas hard for a concentrated period of time. And so if that would happen to a particular part of the country or to a particular program, then we may have issues with there being a minimum number of games played for any one team. So to combat that, of course, there would need to be a requirement. No conference would want, let's say, a 1-0 team to qualify for the conference championship game just because they've got the best winning percentage. They're 1-0. Of course, there would have to be a minimum, but they didn't think it through past that. Therefore, the issue was, and unfortunately, I can't take this phone call right now. We've got Brent Baird standing by from First Coast News. But I will take calls after Brent's off the line. But let me continue my explanation of this. So in this particular situation, the Big Ten did not think it through, or maybe they did, and they just thought, okay, most likely this is not going to happen, and we won't have to explain this or adjust rules or guidelines going forward, and we should be fine, because anybody could have foreseen that this was a possibility, that a team would be on the cusp of the requirement and clearly be the best team. And when I say best team, I'm not talking about an eyeball test. I'm talking about what was performed on the field. Ohio State's been the best team. They're the only team in the conference that's undefeated, and they won the head-to-head against Indiana. So they have clearly established themselves as the best team. Put it this way, there's a 6-game requirement, or there was, as of yesterday, in the Big Ten. If Ohio State said, you know what, we forfeit a game, give it to Illinois 2 weeks ago, we forfeit, they're 5-1. They've got a tiebreaker against Indiana in terms of tying for the one loss, and they beat them head to head. Ohio State clearly showed that they were the best team in the conference, and certainly in the Eastern Division. And there, it's really not in question. I'm going to give you one more example, and I could give you several and have throughout the week to depict this, but I'll give you one more. If you're familiar with the batting championship race in baseball, the player with the best batting average wins the batting championship. Okay, there has to be a minimum number of plate appearances, of course, or a guy could just go 1 for 1 and he says, I hit 1,000, I should win the batting championship. No, there's a minimum number of plate appearances that's required. So let's say it's 100. It's not 100, but for simple math, let's say it's 100. Well, let's say you go 40 for 100 and you hit 400 and you win the batting championship because I went 50 for 90. Therefore, I didn't qualify for the batting championship because I didn't have enough plate appearances. But it doesn't take a mathematician to know that it would be impossible for me not to win the batting championship, because if I had the 100 plate appearances, I would still be 50 for 100. Even if I didn't get another hit, I would be 50 for 100, and that's better than your 40 for 100. Therefore, what Major League Baseball does is say, we fill in the blank with the number of plate appearances that are required for you to hit the minimum, and if you still have the best batting average in the league, then you win the batting championship. The same principle can be applied here. Ohio State could forfeit a game. They still beat Indiana face-to-face or head-to-head, and they still only have one loss, even if it's a forfeit. So the Big Ten amended an issue there. I understand the Indiana side of it, and I understand people that are alarmed and concerned and have all sorts of issues with it, but that's what's been decided. All right, let's get back to the SEC and our good friend Brent Baird from First Coast News. Brent, how you doing? Brent, we're having some audio issues. Hopefully you can find the right switch.
Yeah.
There you are.
Yeah, and you mute my mic. There's amazing things we can do there, right?
Yeah, well, sometimes this technical stuff trips us all up.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Hey, you know what? I need my 6-year-old grandchild here with me. she could probably figure that out very quickly.
Absolutely.
But I will say this, Mark, as we transition into the SEC, look, I'm a playoff guy, and if the committee would have agreed to have had not even go to 8, if they had went to 6, some of this would have been taken care of in that situation. Unfortunately, they did not. So we still wait about that at this point. But still, for Alabama and Florida, that's pretty clear in the SEC. But at the same time, we've still got several interesting games going on this weekend. I'm really disappointed, Mark, that the A&M Ole Miss game was not able to be played. I thought that was going to be a 52-50 type thing on Saturday night. How entertaining that would have been. And I still think A&M would have won. But, Mark, Ole Miss is one of those teams, if you get in a track meet with them, they can give you all kinds of trouble, can't they?
That is the game I wanted to see. And again, I'm sure A&M would have been a substantial favorite, but not in any overwhelming way, probably 12 to 14 points, something in that range. And they've struggled at times on offense, and you can't afford to do that against Ole Miss, which is actually playing better defense in recent weeks than they were. Yeah, that would have been a fun one and that's certainly one in which the Aggies could have slipped up on, certainly with that offensive personnel, with Lane Kiffin calling the shots with Matt Corral at the controls. Brent, it's certainly good to see you for the first time since I believe before Thanksgiving. Hope
yes,
you had a nice holiday.
We did. Both my girls were in, and as you understand this, Mark, I pretty well did what I was told during that point, and we went from there. For fathers, that's about the best way we can do. And the other thing is, my youngest, since we have been on together, has gotten engaged. So, Mark, I've had one daughter got married a few years ago. So, anybody who wants to send any donations for this dad for next year, I'll be glad to take them.
Yeah, I
appreciate that, brother.
I have yet to go down that path, but it's a scary one. Sure. Absolutely. Pricey and scary. Brent, you mentioned it, so we'll head down the rest of that path regarding the playoff. And the only thing I have to add in regards to expansion, for even those people that are against expansion on a regular basis, I'm in favor of expansion. But even for those people that say, hey, we get the blowouts every year, we don't want to expand it, the case is simple. Number one, we've got a disparity in number of games played across the nation, which has made it more difficult to evaluate teams against each other. And I think even more valid than that is the lack of non-conference games, basically no meaningful non-conference games, a lot of Power Fives playing Group of Fives, but no meaningful ones to say, okay, well, the Pac-12 really struggled against the other four, so its conference champion's going to have to be a notch better to get into the playoff, or whatever the evaluation. We don't have that this year.
No, and Mark, how valuable would that Oregon-Ohio State game been? Now Ohio State may have boat raced them, but at the same time, you would have had a better opponent to be comparable with. My thing for expanding the playoff has always been accessibility. But because if you don't have some accessibility, you're not going to get some of these conferences, and certainly the non-Power Five, to be able to be in there too. So, and look, the way this situation is going now, there's going to be several probably well-deserving teams who should be in the playoffs, and which is my thought all along, that this being a COVID year, the commissioners could have just said, look, we need to do ourselves a favor at this point and just be able to expand it at least by another game and have six teams involved instead of 4, and that would have helped a lot. Look, people argue about the bowls. The bowls will be fine, that the bowls will take care of themselves. I'm not saying do away with the bowls, but I'm saying we really are in a situation now to where and it will happen when we renew the TV contracts during the middle of this decade. But this year would have been really valuable to be able to expand the playoffs.
Yeah, it's not always a popular stance that I take, but the one that I do take is that every conference should be represented.
I
That's
agree.
at least,
Yes.
and the reason I say that is that so we first had this announced in 2013 that there would be a playoff, and when I was asked, "Is this a good thing for college football?" My first response was, "It can't not be. It affords two other worthy teams an opportunity to then prove
Right.
and win a national championship." So just by default, in giving two other opportunities, it's a better system. But it's still, if I'm doing the math correctly, 5 conferences, 4 spots, it doesn't work. And then, of course, we have a certain narrative concerning certain conferences not necessarily being as good, and I understand that, but we just don't have the data points and the number of games to evaluate these conferences against each other, just to assume, well, the Pac-12 hasn't been very good, so they're still no good. Don't let them play. When in fact, the Pac-12 has only been in 2 playoffs, and they made a championship game once.
Right.
And the other was not, it wasn't an extremely competitive game, Washington and Alabama, but it was not an embarrassment.
Sure.
It was a 17-7 game in the fourth quarter.
Absolutely. And it would have, and so Washington at that point, they had a fair representation of the conference and of themselves. And look, again, even though I cover the SEC and the ACC, I'm still, as I mentioned, really in favor of your non-Power 5 teams, i.e. your Cincinnati's, UCF a few years ago. I mean, look, who in the world, Mark, can't like this Coastal Carolina situation that we've got going on right now? And listen, I know the arguments and about the situation of, well, if you put them at if you expanded it to 8, you put them in 8, they would just get slaughtered. I get that, but look, until they get a chance, we don't really know that at this point. So that's the thing that we are still hoping that is going to happen sooner than later.
One of my favorite questions to ask people when I'm trying to debunk the current playoff system is, tell me one thing that you can do as a football team to guarantee that you will make the playoff. And it seems like a simple question because people are like, well, just win your conference. Or then they think, okay, no, win all your games and you guarantee. I said, no, that doesn't. There is nothing that you can do to guarantee that you will make the playoff, because if you go undefeated, but every other Power 5 conference champion goes undefeated, somebody gets left out. So you can't even do anything to guarantee that you're going to make the playoff.
Oh yeah. Well, and Mark, I had the opportunity a few years ago to be in with the mock committee in Grapevine, and I really enjoyed that.
Tell us about that.
It was fascinating to be able to be in the room. The thing they did, I was in there in 2018, and they go back 5 years. So when we were looking at the 2013 teams at that point, and one of the interesting developments that happened in that room was Central Florida was one of the teams they were looking at, but the committee looked at their strength of schedule. And Mark, listen, and I'm not exaggerating this, there were a lot of members of that committee in that room that laughed at their schedule, which meant they were not even considered at that point. But I'll say this, the other reality is that decision is a lot harder than it looks. When you've got 13 people in there, some with a lot of differing opinions, and you've got more information that even you and I deal with on a daily basis, which would be doing something to be able to do that. It is really a fascinating experience. And look, this is what I've always said in discussing the playoffs. If you can help it, you need to do everything you can, and you just mentioned this a minute ago, is to get yourself in position to be in the playoffs instead of allowing the committee to make that decision for you.
Yeah, and then the other thing I will say concerning the argument that as you continue to expand, there's always going to be a team that's going to have a gripe.
Sure.
And I understand that, except the big difference between going from 4 to 8 is that once you include all the conferences, that team that has the gripe because they're number 9 in the country, all you have to do is say you had the opportunity to win your conference.
Yeah.
So you
Right.
don't have a gripe. Win your
Well,
conference and you'll be in.
Yeah. And look, for the good of the sport, let's look at it like this. If you got 8 spots, you've got a situation where I'm not sure how far you can back it up. Probably at least if you got 8 spots, at least you've got what, Mark, minimum 12 teams, 12 schools who are riveted on what's going on a weekly basis. When you've only got 4, to me, you've only really got about 6. So for people who saying that would be a detriment to the game, I don't buy that argument at all. The more we can do to keep fans in schools interested and be able to expand that, the better it is for the sport.
I'm going to run the numbers during the off season and go through all the years and devise the 8-team bracket just to make sure. But I'm almost positive that I've run it through in my head over the last 20 years. The worst team I could find to make a playoff was a 10-3 Washington team. Mm-hmm. So, these people that say, oh, you're going to have a bunch of 8-4 team, not at number 8 in the country. Are you going to have an 8-4 team? No. It just doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. And then the other comment I hear is that, how would the 8th best team in the country, why are they deserving to win a national championship? And my thought process there is, first of all, we've got 130 teams playing football. We're taking, you talk about the cream of the crop. Yeah, it's only absolutely. 8 out of 130. It's like 6%. Mm-hmm. And then I'm thinking that if we rank, or the media or the playoff committee ranks a team the 8th best in the country, number 8, and they make the playoff, then they proceed to beat 3 of the 7 best teams in the country. They're not the 8th best team in the country. If they just went and beat number 1 mm-hmm. and like number 2 and like number 5,
sure,
they earned a national championship. I don't think there's a murderer's row in history that a team at number 8 in the country would have to go through like that to win a national championship. They would have earned it.
Well, and as you know, we're down here in Jacksonville, and we covered Bobby Bowden very closely when he was at Florida State. Now, just imagine this, Mark. If we would have had a playoff when Bowden was coaching FSU and they're on that unbelievable streak of like over basically a dozen years of being in the top 5, the thing that's exciting about that, when you think about it, is there were years, and Bowden even alluded to this themselves, where they struggled in September, and then they found themselves in October, November, and they were a team that there was no way you wanted to play them, right, Mark? At the end of November, that would have been as hot as molten lava in the playoffs. So to me, the expanding of the playoffs, to your point, would be real advantageous for that number 8 team that got hot just at the right time and got in the playoffs. And that's a team you don't want to face.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating discussion, and we're at least at this point where we get 4 teams into the and I'm trying to discipline myself, Brent, to not say playoff. I'm trying to correct myself to say invitational. It's only by invite.
Right.
Actually,
right.
Invitational.
Yeah.
But, I still slip up at times. We've got Brent Barrett on the line from First Coast News. Great conversation with him every time talking SEC football. As we conclude the final regular season week, are there any games that really stand out? I'm trying to scan the map. I'm not coming up with anything too great. Usually just based on talent, LSU and Florida is appealing, but could be a bit rough for the Tigers this weekend.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And what would be interesting if you're an LSU fan is what are you going to be doing at quarterback? I think TJ Finley probably would start. I mean, he gave Alabama some issues. And then Max Johnson, who's Brad Johnson's son, used to be at Florida State, by the way. I think he has played fairly well himself. The fascinating thing for Florida in that game would be we never thought this would happen, but Kyle Trask has 38 touchdowns, which is enough within itself. But the all-time record in a season at Florida is 39 by Danny Warfel. We thought that might be, Mark, to use your baseball analogy, Joe DiMaggio at 56 game hitting streak. I mean, he will smash that record before the year's over. We never thought that would really happen. But I think the game to me right now, besides Ole Miss A&M, that will not be played, is that Georgia goes to Missouri. And Georgia, amazingly, Georgia fans were concerned about how many sacks they would have. They've got 23 sacks. The stat I saw a minute ago that really got my attention, they have 156 quarterback hurries. I mean, that's really being able to put pressure on the quarterback. The Georgia group of seniors, they have a chance. They're 42-9. They've got a chance to be able to break the all-time record for seniors if they're able to play enough games, or at least matching that will be 45. So that would certainly be a feather in their cap. We don't know if Richard LeCount is coming back. LeCount, one of the better defensive players you got in that motorcycle accident. But I'll say this Missouri team, and I'm curious what you think about this, they won 5 out of 6. Connor Basilak has been one of the better quarterback finds, frankly, in the league. Larry Roundtree had just been an absolute workhorse, over 72 carries in the last couple of weeks, which is amazing to think about that too, and what he's done. Hopefully Nick Bolton will be back. He is one of the better linebackers. I would say right now, Nick Saban probably deserves it, but he won't ever get it. But Mark, would it be far-fetched to say right now unless it was Dan Mullen, your SEC Coach of the Year could be Eli Drinkwith?
Yeah, as I scan the conference, unless you want to go to the high levels to award the championship with Dan Mullen finally getting past Georgia, yeah, he would seem to be the guy. Sam Pittman for a long time there until they took on a bit of a losing skid here recently was certainly in line as well. And Brent, it brings to mind actually some of the coaching vacancies and one being filled here in the SEC Eastern Division. So let's point to Vandy first and just your evaluation of Derek Mason's job there over the course of 6 seasons and just the unique challenge at Vandy that is unlike anywhere else in the conference.
Well, I give Derek Mason a lot of credit. I mean, Mason, I think, did the best that he could. He certainly was a wonder on the sidelines after they won a close game. That was tremendous. But Mark, the problem with the Vanderbilt is, and I've heard people in Nashville say Vanderbilt is a group of smart people making dumb decisions. And that has happened over the years. Vanderbilt has got to be able to do something about their facilities. If they really want to get serious about football, my understanding is they haven't done anything to that stadium since about probably the Carter administration or something of that nature. So that's going to have to be addressed. I still think Vandy would be smart if they would bring someone in. I know this sounds crazy, but who would run a wishbone like Paul Johnson did at Georgia Tech and just be a tough out with everybody that they played. I think that would help them a lot. But that is a tall task. I've heard Will Healy, for instance, to maybe go in there with that job, and I think he probably would do a really adequate job in that situation. But look, you can't bring someone in at Vandy and have them run a spread attack like everyone else is doing right now. I think they've got to be able to do something different. So again, it's just such a difficult job, and I think Derek Mason did the best he could do.
There seems to be one of these programs in every major conference that has those academic standards and then achieves to some degree. And Stanford has been the best at it, certainly during that late Jim Harbaugh into David Shaw, going to Rose Bowls, winning Pac-12 championships. They've taken it on the chin the last few years. Northwestern in the Big Ten has been that school. Duke has had some success under David Cutcliffe, but certainly Northwestern's doing the best job right now. Stanford has in the past. Do you think Vanderbilt can follow that model and possibly be a factor in the SEC?
I think if they could get a commitment from their administration, that might be possible. If Vandy folks would step up. I mean, look, Frank, and I know this is apples to oranges, but I think you'll get the point. They really have stepped up in baseball. I mean, they've been, frankly, one of the best baseball teams in the SEC. And there was a time to where they were really good in basketball. So I think if you can do that in those sports, you can make a commitment to be able to do it in football. I'll never forget something that Tom Luginbill said about 3 years ago. I was listening to him, and Luginbill said, Ohio State, Clemson, and Alabama all made a total commitment to football that went from the president of the school to the janitorial staff. And what he meant by that is they went all out to make the commitment for football to be the king. And by doing so, it helped immensely their other sports. And not only did it do that, and people don't realize this. I know you've talked about this before with me, but when Nick Saban came to Alabama, there were probably about, and this may be a rough guess, but there were 15 to 20,000 students in Alabama. They're making plans now, Mark, for 50. So, and look, that's one of the benefits in the collateral positives that you get when you make a commitment to football is it's not just what you get in athletics, it's what you get in. And I'm not saying that 50,000 students want to come to Alabama just because of the football team, but you and I both know kids love winners. And they love that excitement, and they love to be able to be there. And I think that's really one of the benefits that you have in some of these schools that really make a commitment to football is you see the increased enrollment that they get within their students. And Mark, as you know, we've talked before, man, it's hard to put a price on that, isn't it?
There's no question about that. I myself am fascinated, or maybe in a mild way, disturbed by the allure of football in making a decision for a particular student to go to chart the course of their life for the next 4 years. And like the common phrase is, you make the decision for the next 4, but it affects the next 40. Yeah. But it is what it is.
It is.
Brent Barrett on the line from First Coast News, enjoying the conversation with him. Just the wealth of knowledge covering the SEC for so long. And we mentioned Derek Mason, the Vanderbilt vacancy. Shane Beamer takes over at South Carolina. You talk about a program. Now Texas and USC are the programs that people look at as underachievers, but we're talking about underachieving from a blue blood standpoint and being quote unquote down the last 10 years. But over the course of the history of a program, I don't know that there's a program in the nation that has underachieved like South Carolina, considering the support of the university, the support of the fans, the conference they play in, the recruiting footprint, that aside from Steve Spurrier's 3 11-win seasons and a few little quick spurts, it's been just marginal football for decades there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And look, Mark, whoever's able to go in there and average 7 to 9 wins a year, they'll have a statue by the caboose at some point at South Carolina. And look, when people have asked me some thoughts on the hiring of Shane Beamer, and my reply to that is I don't know. I don't know if Shane's going to move the needle, frankly, and ticket sales. and so forth. My concern too is, and people have said this from time to time, you're seeing it right now at Tennessee. Do you want to necessarily hire a coach that, from the head coaching perspective, is going to be on training wheels in the beginning? But at the same time, what you also hear is, obviously, he's got a really good pedigree. We know who his dad is. We know who he served under, obviously in Oklahoma now. And gosh, Mark, by osmosis, with all the good coaches he's been under, I think that's going to help him. He's a player's coach. He's very friendly. I think he gets a lot of that. And look, whoever is successful at South Carolina is going to have to go in there and say, I know Clemson's the bully on the block right now in this state, but we don't care. We're going to be who we are. We're going to bring in better players and be able to sustain something above what they have sustained before with the Steve Spurriers who were there and had a little bit of success at that point. But I'm with you. That there are too many advantages, I think, in that state. And look, and Muschamp said this himself. Well, Muschamp, the previous coach, they have really upgraded their facilities. That stadium is a classic. I think they've got their football buildings now are very good. They have got this new academic building that I think, and I may be wrong on this, someone will correct me, I'm sure, but I think it was called the Doty. That I distinctly remember in the SEC media days that Muschamp just raved about that building for about 10 minutes as far as what they could do. So I think the point is, compared to what we were talking a few minutes ago about Vanderbilt, I think a lot of facilities at South Carolina, Mark, are probably already in place.
Brent, I don't know if you can see the screen. This is a tremendous challenge that Aesthetics Hardstyle is making right here. He's been doing this for the last several nights. He has basically told everyone, Alabama's going to win the national championship. You can take the field. I'll take Alabama, and we'll put $10 on the line. And the best part of it is, God bless Aesthetics Hardstyle. He has said all the money, regardless of who wins the bet, goes to the channel.
Hallelujah. Absolutely. We're down for that, aren't we?
There we go. Aesthetics Hardstyle, we appreciate that so much. The roller coaster ride that an SEC coach can go on, Brent, while we're on the subject of head coaches. Jeremy Pruitt started last season 0-2, including a loss to Georgia State. And although BYU's a good football team, it was the manner in which they lost that game. So suddenly he's on the hot seat. Right. Then they turn it around. They win whatever it was, 6 consecutive at the end, win a bowl game, and he's riding high into the offseason. Great recruiting class. And then he starts out 2-0. He's leading Georgia at halftime of the third game, still riding high. And now, bam, here we are 5-6 games later. He hasn't won since. And it's just not looking good for him.
My concern for Jeremy is if they were to lose to Vanderbilt, I don't know if athletic director Phil Fulmer could keep the Wolves at bay. I know they're not happy, and I get that. But Mark, you and I talked about this at the beginning of the year. Even though they were on that 8-game winning streak and they were down here in the Gator Bowl and beat Indiana, and you can really appreciate that win now. Some of that was fool's gold, frankly. But at the same time, they've got some real talent. Their linebacker, Henry, is one of the Toa is one of the best. Trey Smith has been the Gray kid at running back has been very impressive. Where they've really struggled is at quarterback. And if they could do anything with Harrison Bailey and get him a little bit settled in, I think that would help them. I still think right now that unless Phil Fulmer has somebody waiting that we don't know about yet, that's ready to come, that Jeremy would get another year. And frankly, I think he deserves another year. I know things have not gone well this year. The the dust up that he and Jeremy Brumbaugh had. Jeremy Brumbaugh, who played at Auburn and also played down the road from us here in Jacksonville at Keystone Heights, that was very unfortunate that happened. So they've got some internal things going on at this point too. Fulmer, I thought, really kind of made a faux pas last week when he was talking about, well, Jeremy is as competitive as anybody, and his record right now is very comparable to what Johnny Majors had at this point in his career, when we certainly know what happened between Fulmer and Johnny Majors for Fulmer to get that job. So I think that as the former Auburn coach Sonny Smith said, I don't think I would have told that. I don't think Fulmer should have mentioned that either. But the point is that Jeremy Pruitt needs time. But look, Fulmer got Jeremy Pruitt because he thought he was one of the hot young assistants, and he was when he was at Alabama, A, and then B, he thought that getting Pruitt would hurt Alabama. Well, obviously it really hasn't. So he's 0 for 2 right now with that. But and look, could he pull the trigger still? Yeah. But more, I still think Pruitt deserves another year at least to bring his people in. But at the same time, it's obvious some changes are going to have to be made in that staff. I don't know about the relationship, Mark, between he and Jim Chaney, the offensive coordinator. I'm not sure they're on the same page at this point either. But I tell you this, it would have really helped Pruitt, and not everybody gets to do this, but it would have helped Pruitt greatly if he could have coached at Southern Miss or South Alabama or Georgia Southern or wherever for a few years before he went to Tennessee. Not everybody's able to do that, we understand, but at the same time, I think he'll get another year because I think Fulmer is strong enough, Mark, in order he can keep people calm down to the point and explain to them that things will get better. But I'm telling you, they need to make some progress offensively, particularly at quarterback, these next couple of games to end the season.
Brent Baird, First Coast News, always providing some great insight into SEC football for us. Brent, enjoy the rest of the season. Hopefully we'll see you here soon.
Absolutely. Look forward to that, Mark. Always great to be on with you. Appreciate what you're doing. And we're excited about what the future holds. And again, I like that bet. I think that'd be great. So we'll encourage everybody to lay their money down, right?
There we go. Good stuff.
My pleasure, pal. Take care.
Thank you, Brent. Yeah, Brent's been joining us for a few years, does a great job. You can catch him on First Coast News and also College Sports Today. The phone lines are open. I know that I had to ignore some calls when I was in conversation with Brent, but I will take some calls before we call it a night here. So certainly if you want to call in and talk any college football, it doesn't have to be about the SEC in particular. And here we go. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Dominic.
Hey, Dominic. What's up?
Nothing much, really. Just, as usual, chilling, checking out the college football final week.
Okay. What hits you? Hello? Hello, Dominic?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah, what you got?
Yeah, well, I heard that there was an update for the college football playoff rankings. Am I correct?
Those come out every Tuesday night.
Every Tuesday night? Okay. Well, let me see here. Well, Iowa State, they moved up. They're 8-2, but My thoughts on Iowa State, they've done pretty well throughout this season, and they could potentially make the playoffs. I am not too sure about that, but Iowa State's done pretty well. The playoff rankings, Iowa State, they've done pretty well.
All right, Dominic. We appreciate the call. You have a great night.
All right.
Press 1 to start the call or 2 to decline. The call will start at the beep.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line? Hello. Okay. Let's strike two.
The call will start at the beep.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Well, I just had to give this man a call because I've been begging for a while for you to bring out the Art Schlichter jersey
Okay.
and, clean off the mothballs and, sport that bad boy.
Yeah.
And I must say, you look stunning in that, Mark.
Oh, stunning.
I want to give you credit.
Absolutely. Stunning. Yes, here it is. Yes. This is a treasure. It certainly is.
Well, I got to say, is that autographed, Mark?
It is.
There you go.
I was given that for a gift.
Jeez.
I was
So
given
you got the
that was
Go
a
ahead.
gift
Sorry.
from someone who had no idea who Art Schlichter is, and so they asked me, sometime a couple months prior to Christmas, who's your favorite football player? And I'm like, at my age, I don't have a favorite football player. It's been a long, long time since I had a favorite football player. But then I mentioned, when I was a kid, it was Art Schlichter.
Right.
They're like, okay, can you spell that for me? So anyway, lo and behold, I was not suspecting, but I got the autographed Art Schlichter jersey for Christmas. It's very nice.
There you go. The gambler. So you got him to. That's unfortunate what happened. Just a great player, but Hey, I wanted to give you a call. I saw you, by the way, I first saw that on the Days podcast, Michigan podcast you did. I should say that team up north. I don't want to use that term, by the way, especially after what's transpired here. But wash my mouth out with soap, apparently. But you know what? I got to say this, Mark. I've just never seen a person so defeated as him and the rest of that crew up there. It's just, it's kind of sad. It's almost like, well, I mean, when you watch that team, it seems like they're not really, and you commented on this podcast, that they don't really seem to be playing hard for Jim Harbaugh anymore. And I'm not saying that was what's behind the decision for them not to play this week, but, I just don't think that bodes well for them going into the future. But I think that's what Dave sees. Didn't you get that feeling as well?
Yeah, I think that Jim Harbaugh has somewhat conceded in his mind that he's just not going to get past this juggernaut. And it's been picked up by the other people in the program, the players in particular. Now that's a lot of speculation on my part that I typically don't do, but just watching his mannerisms and how he's conducted himself, because I think he went in there and just really gave it a go for the better part of this time. Certainly they've been a good team for all of this time up until now. And maybe that 2018 loss just really hit him hard.
Yeah, it did. I think, he basically had two cracks at Ohio State with a chance to win the Big Ten, and he, came into Columbus. One was a heartbreaker, and one, they were clearly favored, and they just got thumped. And, that was it, pretty much. And I think by the way, I listened to the Buckeye show today, very good. And the guys outlined some really good points. I mean, there's just a lot of players that they haven't been able to develop up there, and I know that's something that Dace has talked about in the past. I mean, they've recruited at a good enough level, but they just have a lot of guys, it seems like, that have underachieved up there. I know that the guys on the Buckeye show were talking about that today. And, again, that goes back to what we've talked about before, just not having the right coaching or the coaches to develop the players. So, hey, I wanted to ask you, Mark, what are your thoughts about the Big Ten? I didn't hear you earlier changing the rule for Ohio State to play in the championship game.
I have to gain my composure. I'm a bit amused by the post that I just put on the screen. I'll just let that resonate there for a minute.
Okay.
Well, I had stated at some point during the season when I saw this coming that it was that certainly to put a requirement of games on a situation like this is understandable. You're not going to award a 1-0 or 2-0 team to get to a conference championship game. So, but they either didn't see past that, or they just started to go into all the stipulations and all the possibilities and thought, we're going to make this more difficult, trying to figure out before anything happens what kind of guidelines, if we have to put in, steps 1 through 17 to determine all the possible fallouts. So we hope it doesn't come to it. So we'll just put the game played requirement in and see where we wind up. I would hope that they at least anticipated that this could be a problem, because I certainly did, and I'm no genius.
Sure. No, I hear you. They started late. And I know that we've talked about this. On the Buckeye call I had with you, everything that's been instituted, I posted this today, from the 21-day rule to not allowing having, parents in the stands to even watch their kids play, let alone having 20,000 people in the stands like we talked about ACC and SEC schools, let them have, to starting the season way later than the ACC and the SEC and the other conferences did, just put them behind the 8 ball and did not give them any room to reschedule these games. So, I was lacking confidence in their ability to make the right decision here after those previous decisions, Mark. But, I would, like I told you before, I was a little encouraged that Barry Alvarez, who helped design the schedule, came out and said what he said about it. That, as I told you before, that gave me a little bit of hope going forward. And I'm just glad they made the right decision. Overall, and I want to mention this again, I just wish the Buckeyes had more games to play. I wish they had a game to play this weekend, because they need more games to work on some of their issues and improve on defense and play some younger guys. And, more games helps. As a fan, I want my team to play more games.
Yeah. If people are making just the argument about more games needed for a resume build, and that's certainly part of it as well. But I think it's much more to what you're talking about concerning their preparation for a playoff game against another elite and needing the live bullets. And then also the portion of it where I see the criticisms made, and this is just typical trash talk from the critics of the team regarding the cancellation of the Illinois game. Now, come on. For anyone who thinks that Ohio State's canceling a game against Illinois because they're afraid they're going to lose, that's not why that was decided.
Right. And bottom line, Mark, 2 of the 3 games that were canceled were on, the team up north in Maryland. And I would have loved to have seen the Maryland game rescheduled this weekend, but I don't think that's going to happen. At least it doesn't look like it. I don't know if you guys talked about it today. I may have missed it. Did you guys talk about that Texas A&M idea that was floated out there? Had you heard about that possibility?
Yeah.
It seemed far-fetched to me.
But I don't know who... it's one thing for somebody to gain some kind of steam by just throwing something out on social media and getting it, pushed along by a few people with some influence. It's another thing for an idea of that to have any real validity. And I just can't imagine that did. I don't think there was anything real to it. It's fun to think about, and I would love to watch Texas A&M and Ohio State play, of course.
Well, I would agree with you. By the way, first bowl game I ever watched was that Cotton Bowl between Texas A&M and, of course, maybe one of the best Ohio State teams of all time in '98 beat A&M in the Sugar.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I don't think Sankey or Ward. I even heard Jimbo Fisher come out today and say he thought it was not going to happen and a crazy idea. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think that there was anything out there other than just some people floating it out there as an idea because the two teams are close in the rankings. So, yeah, I tend to agree.
Yeah,
I mean, all things. Yeah.
I was just going to say, we're sitting here on a Wednesday night, and I know that the Pac-12 threw together a game, and so did Coastal Carolina and BYU. But yeah, of course, with each passing hour, the less likely it becomes.
I agree. Hey, Mark, final thought. Do you think you had something posted about USC? Are you a believer that if USC runs the table, that the Pac-12 could have a legitimate chance?
Well, this is the path that I gave USC was Alabama wins the SEC. Notre Dame wins the ACC. Ohio State, let's say, goes undefeated, wins the Big Ten. So we've got the three in without any challenge to them in their conference. And then regardless of what happens in the Big 12, we've got a 2-loss champion. And then we've got Cincinnati, who has now missed 2 games, more than 2 games. I believe they would have been 11-0. They would have had 11 games played, I should say, after this Tulsa game this weekend. They're only 8-0. So they're now missing their 3rd game, and they'll play a conference championship game against Tulsa. So to make it a clearer path, let's say Cincinnati loses a game to Tulsa, or even if they win out, they're 9-0, being compared to a Power 5 champion that's going to be 6-0. USC's been, I'm not going to go to the extent of dominant the last 2 weeks, but at least this last week, and they were impressive in their previous win after 2 nail biters that were sketchy. So if they dominate the next 2 weeks, then they're 6-0, and who earns that spot? Is it Texas A&M? Is it 9-1? Well, it's not going to be 9-1. It's going to be 8-1 Texas A&M, or a 6-0 conference champion. Or does Texas A&M slip up against whoever they've got left? Tennessee, probably not. I did want to see them. That's when I thought there was going to be a game against Ole Miss. So again, there would need to be a lot of dominoes, but to make it even clearer, Texas A&M slips up against what would have been an Ole Miss game at the time that I shot the video, and this other Cincinnati losing or just not playing. And then who's your 4th team? Well, USC sitting there at 6-0.
Right, I agree. I mean, I think it's more likely if Texas A&M loses, gets the 2nd loss. I could see them basically maybe not having a choice at that point, and I don't think they would go the non-Power 5 route with Cincinnati. So I think they would. That would be maybe the only situation they might, be forced to take a Pac-12 team. I can see where you're coming from on that.
So I threw it out there.
All right. Hey, keep the Art Schleister jersey around. I like it. So.
Oh, it's here. It is here. Always standing by.
All right, I'll talk to you soon. Take care, Mark.
All right, Dave. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
My favorite comment of the night, I just have left it up there. It's just tremendous. From that's quite the handle you've got there. RTGFDERTY. We don't know what to call you. 543. Use some of your hair dye budgeted by a real call-in system. Oh, that's great. All right, Anthony, thank you so much for the Super Chat contribution. Go Army, beat Navy. The only unfortunate thing about that great rivalry this weekend is that it's going to be cluttered up by the rest of the schedule, where in the past, we've been able to watch Army and Navy just as an isolated, singular game by itself on its own weekend after the conference championship games and before the bowl games start the next Saturday. It has that 1 week all to itself, but not this year. All right, everyone. we are going to be back here at 4:15 tomorrow to talk Miami football. And then, you know what? We'll just make it 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock Eastern time, talking Miami football tomorrow. Then at 7 o'clock Eastern time, more Miami football talk. And in between, Nebraska Live here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. And we have had a number of great discussions with all sorts of beat writers and broadcasters over the last couple of days, and I'm getting those videos posted. We've got team-specific channels that you can look out for. And if you're, let's say, a Michigan fan, go to our Michigan channel, subscribe there. Just look up the Voice of College Football Michigan on YouTube, and please help us get to 1,000 subs. But if you just want to help us overall and you're not a fan of any particular teams outside of your team, but still want to support the channels and the effort and the buildup of the entire platform, go sub to all of them. You've got, we've got an SEC channel. We've got Ohio State, Michigan, Nebraska, Notre Dame, Clemson, Florida State, Miami, USC, Oregon, Texas. That's it. That's where we stand right now. So go sub to all those channels, and you'll be glad that you did. And basically, at this point, much of the content is just repurposed from this channel in a different package. But at the same time, the more that they're built out, then the more we're going to be able to devote unique content, like we do to the Miami channel, for example, unique content to that particular channel. And the more contributions we get for you, the more I can buy more hair dye, which it does look like it's dye, doesn't it? It does look pretty dark. Well, I put that gel in. I put like 1950s style gel, and it gives it that lacquered black look. And so, you know, believe what you want to believe. All right, good stuff. It's great to see everybody in here, and we'll catch everybody tomorrow night. Harry Bryant, go blue for life, no matter what. That's what I love to see out of a college football fan or a sports fan in general. That's what I love to see right there. I love to see somebody who just loves their team and is like, I'm in it, period. So yes, is it easy for me to be a Buckeyes fan? Yeah, they go 11-1 every year. True. But I made this comment during our Ohio State show this afternoon. When Ohio State, let's pick the year 1988. 1988 was John Cooper's first year. The Buckeyes went 4-6-1. Do you believe that Ohio State fans are going to hate me for this, but I am less of a Buckeyes fan today than I've ever been in my life. The older I get, the more other things in life exist. It's still, when Ohio State runs out onto the field and I see them on the TV set and they got the scarlet and gray on, yes, I'm invested, and that's my team. But because of what I'm investing here and delivering to all of you, when Ohio State goes up 28-0 on Michigan State, I'm not watching the rest of the Ohio State game. I'm watching other games. And even at the start of the game, when they played Rutgers, I didn't watch one play of that game. I was watching games to deliver content for this channel. But I am a huge, huge Buckeyes fan. People would have told you back when I was 15, 20 years old, I was the biggest Buckeyes fan you would find anywhere. But again, you get older, other priorities pop up in life, and it just doesn't mean as much. And on top of that, I'm doing this. But for example, Ohio State, again, 4-6-1 in 1988. This is the example that comes to mind. I was so invested in those games. I was watching them lose to Purdue. What was the score of that game? I used to remember, and I could probably still concentrate and come up with every score. I was thinking of this the other night, and I know I'm all over the map talking about all this stuff, and I'll take this call in just a second. You're going to have to call back. I'm sorry. I'm all over the map with this, but I had the idea as I was thinking about this call-in show coming your way night after night after night after night. What could we do? Well, in this day and age of everyone having the internet and Google, and you can look up the answer to anything, it doesn't become quite as fun. But I would throw my hands up and let everybody know I don't have a phone in my hand. I don't have a laptop at my disposal. Throw me trivia questions. Throw me college football trivia questions. Maybe that would be fun one night, or as a little segment each and every night, or a couple times a week, or once a week. But when that Ohio State football team was 4-6-1 and playing Michigan, that was the most important game to mankind for me. So I've been a Cleveland Indians fan, see, my whole life. We know how much they've sucked for almost every year. Sure, they've been good recently, but I've been a fan since 1978. They've been awful. So I can commiserate as an Indians fan and as a Buckeyes fan in the likes of 1987 and 88 and 89, 90, 91 when they weren't that good, 1999 when they went 6-6, that I love fans that just say, this is my team. I'm not jumping around to every school in the country or every team. I hate when I talk to somebody and they're a Cowboys fan, and 5 years ago they were a Giants fan. Or, it's like, stick to your team, stick through it, stay there, be tough, persevere. So that got me excited, Harry. I appreciate that. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's George in Oregon.
George.
Yeah, I just turned off my heater. Hey, before I forget, you got a pencil and paper. You can go back and watch film later. There's a place called Les Schwab in Oregon. It's a $1 billion tire company.
Okay.
And they support all sports in Oregon. They run the high school playoffs. Beavers, Ducks, Les Schwab tires, And they're good people. Les Schwab, LESSWCHAB, Les Schwab.
Gotcha.
But I'd be willing to help you, being an Oregonian and a customer. But I think if they understood there is no Oregon presence on the internet, and that you're going to do it, even if you got 45 fans, you'll build it up to 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever,
We're around
they
850.
would support you.
We've got about 850 on there right now.
Oh my God!
No, we've got about 850 subscribers on our Oregon channel.
That's incredible. That's incredible. That's so good. That's such a good baseline right there, and that'll just grow exponentially.
Well, I will reach out to these folks.
Well, I can help you. I can give you some background on these people. We don't have to do it right this second. I don't know how we're going to do it, but
just
if you just look into
email me.
It's such a story.
We'll start there.
Les Schwab wrote a book. Huh?
Email me. We'll start there.
Oh God! All right, I hate technology so bad.
Well, call me then. I don't know.
It's a good wholesome company though.
Okay, that's good stuff.
God damn it! Well, here's my first comment I want to make for tonight that we can discuss. I heard that some football players haven't played football since this season began because of something called tracking and tracing. So it's like they come up to your star player, maybe 3 of them, and they say, hey, y'all were at Pietro's Pizza last week, and there was a guy there that had coronavirus, so you can't play for 2 or 3 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Even there was nothing wrong. What are we doing here, man? How are we supposed to talk serious about football?
Yeah, Michigan's missing 40-some players this weekend, so they can't play Ohio State.
Right.
It's my understanding that almost all of them are due to contact tracing. They did not test positive.
This is like a science fiction movie. When I go to the store now, I leave my phone at home. I will be damned if somebody's going to tell me that I was at Safeway last week and, I went down aisle 13 and they can't tell me who it was, but give me a break.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
It's a bit scary.
Ridiculous. It is.
It's a bit scary what's going on in this country in certain ways. Yeah.
All right, back to the fantasy side of football. If Florida beats Alabama, we'll probably get to play again for the national championship. We could probably run over whoever we play after that. And that's just fantasy because who knows if we even ever get to play another game.
What are you going to do?
We always got to throw. We always got to throw that in there if we get to play by the grace of a fake medical test or tracking and tracing. All right. I was thinking maybe Pittsburgh might trade everything they have to move up high enough in the draft to get Trask. Don't you think that would be the perfect replacement for Roethlisberger? He could wait a couple years. He could sit on a bench and learn. He's a patient young man. He's proven that. He'll wait.
That's not a bad deal. That's a pretty good match there you made.
I agree. I used to live in Pittsburgh, and I know any team would love to have him. But, these other quarterbacks like Justin Fields, yeah, sure, he's flashy and he can run and all that. But just a stable presence for 10 years in the quarterback position. The most important thing is you can read a freaking defense. You've seen everything, and it's really hard to fool you, Hard to fool you by dropping back a linebacker or something. He's like, oh, I've seen that before. I think I'll throw it over here.
Yeah, he's impressive. No doubt.
So was Mac Jones. I'm not taking nothing away from him. Oh, my gosh. I always knew he was good when all them other guys were playing Alabama. I always knew he's competent. I never said a bad word about him. He would have started anywhere else.
Yeah, he's tearing it up. You guys are supposed to lose that game, according to Vegas, by 14.
Hey, look, the guy put in the comment section, he said, if you're rated, your percentage goes down. The more games you play, the lower your chance of finishing the season undefeated. By the time you get to the end of the year, it's like 50% chance because it's just hard to go undefeated. You follow me? So if Alabama can pull it off, more power to them. But I like our odds. At least, the law of averages is in our favor.
I can't wait to watch it. And I know that you've been predicting it since before they started playing games.
I'm not really even predicting it. I'm saying I would be happy to win by one.
No,
that's all I care about. Just one.
I'm saying that you were predicting Alabama and Florida to play in the SEC championship game. That you were telling us, even those people that were predicting Georgia to continue their run, that you were saying, Florida, this is our year. We're going to the conference championship game.
That's just because Kirby Smart doesn't instill a lot of confidence in me. Any other coach at Georgia, I just said, we're in trouble. But with Kirby there, I feel pretty good. Yeah, Kirby's on a Jim Harbaugh. He's on a Jim Harbaugh path. I can tell.
You think?
Yeah, I do.
That's a bit harsh.
Wait 2 more years until they don't win the SEC East again and see what happens with all them 5 stars. My goodness gracious. Stetson Bennett the fourth. Are you serious? And now they got a good quarterback and the defense can't play. It's always something with them guys. Nothing against Georgia. It's not the fans' fault. It's the coach's fault.
All right, George.
All right. Hey, Florida's building a $500 million football facility. It's under construction. So anybody that signs with us knows they're going to get to spend the next 3 or 4 years there. It's our turn. We got swimming pools, palm trees, everything. Can you imagine $500 million? That's a lot of money for a football facility. Something like that. Maybe it's $250 million. I don't know. But all right. Next caller.
Good stuff. All right, George. Appreciate it as always. You're the man.
Love you guys. Bye.
Thanks, man. The incomparable one. All right. I think that should do it for a Wednesday night. Tons of content coming your way, so lock it in here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Many of you have joined us maybe just a few times, have yet to subscribe. Hopefully you've seen enough that you know this is the place to be for best discussion, debate, and analysis of college football. I'm not promising that every day, every time, but that's the aim, that's the goal, that's the mission, that's the objective. Best discussion, debate, and analysis right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. So we appreciate your time, and we will see everyone back here on Thursday at 4, 6, in 7 live. See you then.